Lynn Chandler Willis never thought she'd write a true crime novel, and she certainly never imagined that the setting would be right here in her own hometown. But when a woman dies in a suspicious house fire, detectives uncovered the most shocking crime ever to hit Pleasant Garden, North Carolina. It's 9 a.m. in Pleasant Garden, North Carolina. Drugstore owner Ron Langdon is doing what he's done every day since 1969. And while Ron starts his workday, firefighter Alan Fields has just finished his and is looking to blow off some steam. Life as a small-town firefighter isn't easy.
Here in Pleasant Garden, there are a lot of local people. Sometimes you get a call and it might be somebody you know. You know exactly whose house it is before you ever get there.
October 9th turns out to be one of those days.
We got dispatched to a house fire on Brandon Station Court, so I knew it was Ted and Patricia Kimball's house, because at the time that was the only house on the court.
As the call was being dispatched, they also gave additional information that someone might be trapped inside.
Inside the house, their rescue takes a tragic turn.
We searched our way up to the hallway. That's when we got up to a hole that had burned in the floor.
There, they make a heartbreaking discovery. Human remains, later identified as Patricia Blakely Kimball. The firefighters fear another body may be right around the corner.
I wasn't sure if Ted was there or not. Wasn't really sure who was inside.
But through the smoke and searing flames, they find no one else. Patricia seems to have been home alone.
It does shock you a little bit. It takes a while to get over it.
What a tragic accident. Or has somebody shattered the peacefulness of Pleasant Garden on purpose?
Went into the bedrooms and noticed the drawers pulled out of the desk, papers everywhere, like maybe somebody had been in there trying to rob the place.
We come back down the hallway, and where the hole was in the floor, we noticed it looked like a burn trail. Well, then we put two and two together with the room being ransacked, the back door being pried. Then you get in here and you realize, well, this is really suspicious.
And then, the discovery that erases any doubt about the origin of this fire.
We followed the trail over to the door and realized, hey, there's a gas can sitting in here.
Somebody actually poured gas all the way in here, set the fire, and left.
Patricia's husband is notified and races to the scene.
Sometime a few minutes later, I saw Ted arrive at the house.
Ted is distraught when he learns of his wife's death. And when the medical examiner's report comes back, it only gets worse. Before the fire started, somebody shot Patricia in the back of the head. The junior pharmacists at the Pleasant Garden drugstore are stunned by the tragic timing.
It breaks my heart that it happened to her. Yeah, I know. She had just gotten married, too, to Ted.
And they hadn't been married long.
Yeah, I know.
And now he's left without her.
It was a match made in heaven, the son of a preacher and a good Christian girl. Now, life in Pleasant Garden doesn't seem so pleasant for the members of her prayer group.
When I found out she was gone, it was horrible.
I just can't imagine. I really can't.
I lost my best friend. It's a horrible feeling to have her gone.
While Pleasant Garden mourns its loss, detectives Jim Church and Harold Pendergrass get down to business. They don't get many chances to work on homicides in this sleepy town.
So I hear you guys are working on the Kimball case.
Yeah.
Hope you catch the guy.
Thanks, we'll do our best.
But today, they've got hopeful neighbors and a delicious cup of coffee on their side.
Harold, let's go over some of these pictures from the crime scene. There is obviously a pour pattern that follows from the kitchen into the hallway area. What do you think it looks like, a burglary?
Detective Church thinks not.
But based on what we see here in these photos, there's no disturbance in this closet at all. There were items of value and money left in plain view, and all they had to do was pick it up.
What kind of burglar leaves money on the table?
Well, it looks like somebody wanted it to make us think it was a burglary, but I don't think it's a burglary. I think it was a staged burglary.
And investigators know what a staged burglary means.
When this occurs, the people that commit the crime are known to the victim and people in the community.
And the fire also speaks volumes.
Fire to a lot of people means that it is a cleansing it's of their soul and their mind. And this would be a person that would have a religious affiliation and probably maybe a religious background.
If investigators are correct, Patricia's killer was somebody she knew, and likely a person of faith. But in Pleasant Garden, this hardly counts anybody out.
In a small town such as this, you might say everybody knows everybody, everybody goes to church.
The entire town fits the profile. So which one of these good citizens is actually a cold-hearted killer? The South Elm Baptist Prayer Circle meets every Saturday in Pleasant Garden. But this week, all they can talk about is the shocking murder of their dear friend, Patricia Kimball.
Patricia was my goddaughter.
You had to have been devastated.
When I heard that there was a fire at the house, my heart just dropped out. I just can't imagine of who or why anybody could have done anything to her.
And even back at the firehouse, fear starts to take hold.
It left a funny feeling in you going home after that, didn't it? Yeah. It's pretty unnerving. When I got home, I'd left the house unlocked. I think everybody in the community started locking their doors and keeping check on things a little bit more better than what they used to since that's happened. It leaves a weird feeling, that's for sure.
Local writer Lynn Chandler Willis agrees.
We were scared. We were shocked. We started locking our doors at night, looking at strangers a little more suspiciously than the warm Southern welcome that we were known for. And people were genuinely concerned that there was a murderer on the loose.
But to lead investigator Jim Church, fear is a four-letter word. He heads out to check on a computer simulation of the fire, hoping to learn when and where the fire started.
This is the area here in the hallway where the most damage was done. It was relatively a small fire, put off a lot of smoke, as you can see it banking off here and into the other rooms where we should have had right much damage. We're able to determine that based on the amount of heat we believe that it created, the burn patterns, and the amount of flammable liquids that were possibly used inside the residence.
Could you give me a rough figure of a burn time?
Yeah, we're probably looking at an hour, hour and a half.
Now Detective Church has the information he needs to check alibis. But where to begin? Who could have committed this dreadful crime?
In cases like this, we try to look at people that are close to the victim. People that knew Patricia from workplace, from association, even from church.
And no matter where he looks, Detective Church hits nothing but dead ends.
It was determined that Patricia just didn't have any enemies.
He even looks at Patricia's grieving husband, Ted, to see if he may have been the intended target.
Yes, sir.
But he finds no skeletons in the preacher's son's closet.
He comes from a very fine family. His father's a Baptist minister.
The case is baffling, but with a killer on the loose, investigators refuse to give up.
This is a very serious case. We've spent a great deal of time on it up to this point. We did interview friends, relatives, co-workers, anybody and everybody to get additional information. If there's anything comes up, you feel free to get in touch with me. It don't matter if it's nighttime, 24 hours a day. We were looking for somebody that had a mode to do this, to murder somebody and then set them on fire. It takes a special mix of chemicals in anybody's brain to do stuff like this. So we were trying to put all this together. It was very frustrating.
Then, Detective Church comes across a clue from Patricia's past that could blow the case wide open.
Approximately 2 years prior to this, there was a burglary at Patricia's home. She came home from work one day and she discovered her house had been broken into. A suspect was arrested for breaking in her home, which was Ricky Lee Tart.
Ricky Tart made a career out of stealing from the often unlocked homes of Pleasant Garden. But even after Tart's arrest, Patricia was still nervous.
She was very uptight, scared that whoever did this would come back.
And behind the exterior of everyday life, fear began to take over the Kimballs.
Patricia was scared after the break-in.
I heard she was terrified that they would come back.
Maybe they would be there when she came home one day.
Looks like her worst fears may have come true. Did Ricky Tart come back to pay Patricia a deadly visit? Pleasant Garden cops investigating Patricia Kimball's murder have started to uncover secrets smoldering beneath the surface. And to local writer Lynn Chandler Willis, it's a tale begging to be told.
Hey guys, good to see y'all again.
Lynn, how you doing?
She and her friendly local writers group start dissecting the story.
So, Lynn, there had been a break-in at the house?
There had been a previous break-in, and it scared Patricia to death. She was terrified that something like that would happen again.
Was poor Patricia paranoid? Or might she have been onto something? To investigators, this is a much-needed lead.
Jim. I'm going to need your assistance here. Developed another suspect in the Kimball case, a guy named Ricky Tart. He was involved previously in a burglary at that residence. He was involved in several residential burglaries, and Patricia's happened to be one of them.
This sounds like a good lead here. I think we'll try to locate this guy, Jim, and sit down with him and see if he's our guy.
Hey, Judy.
Hi.
Jim's come up with a name that we need to check out, Ricky Lee Tart.
Okay.
Can you run it for us?
Yeah, that's him there, yep.
But when they run a background check on their suspect, investigators get disappointing news.
Okay. Ricky Tart had the best alibi that anybody could have. He was in prison at the time.
Well then, guess Ricky Tart isn't the killer. It's another dead end. And so, as Lynn Chandler Willis chronicles, fear, gossip, and speculation are coming into bloom in Pleasant Garden, especially when it comes to the grieving widower, Ted Kimball.
After Patricia's murder, Ted was acting in a different way, and some people were saying that he wasn't acting like a typically grieving husband would act. It was the topic of all conversation.
But Ted has an airtight alibi for the night of the murder.
Ted's alibi was a good alibi. He was at work, he left work, he went by Mrs. Winter's fast food restaurant, and then went to his second job. It all checked out.
Even his old pals at the fire station have noticed that something isn't right.
I saw him up at the bike shop about a week after that, and he was talking to the man about doing a lot of work on a bike he just bought that day. Going to spend a whole bunch of money. They said he's got an alibi of where he was at when everything happened. Just seemed kind of weird. Your wife's dead, you burned out of your house, and you're going out spending money.
But that's not all that gets the town buzzing.
I heard about a week after Patricia died in the fire that Ted was seen with another woman.
It doesn't seem very respectful. Shortly after Patricia's murder, Ted was being seen around town with other women.
And Ted's behavior at the memorial service is even more unseemly.
He wasn't acting the part of the grieving husband. He was just very lighthearted, very carefree, and really didn't seem to care too much.
How very odd. And somebody else was acting strangely as well.
Ted's brother, Ronnie, was horribly upset. He was visibly shaken, crying, just devastated.
There was a strange thing going on. Ted himself didn't really show much emotion, but on the other hand, Ronnie was the one who looked like he was devastated. He was crying, and I thought it should have been the other way around, but it just wasn't.
Ronnie really takes Patricia's death to heart. But what is going on with Ted? Detective Church is about to make a discovery that throws a whole new light on Patricia's husband.
We're able to uncover a lot of information about life insurance being taken out. The total insurances of everything involved was $560,000.
Turns out, Ted stood to make a hefty bundle from his wife's demise. What an intriguing plot twist for Lynn's book.
Patricia had called a friend of hers after she found out about the insurance policy and told the friend that she was scared of what Ted might do, and if anything ever happened to her, to look at Ted.
Ted is starting to feel the heat in town and from law enforcement, so he stops talking.
Ted Kimball almost completely quit cooperating with us. And I said, you understand what we're doing here? We're trying to find out who killed your wife.
Ted's behavior is making him the talk of the town, but his alibi is solid.
We knew he was not the person that pulled the trigger to kill her.
But investigators can't shake the feeling that Patricia's husband is behind the whole thing.
It was in the springtime. A vehicle approached me from behind. I observed when it passed me, it was Ted Kimball, and I was able to see the smile on his face. He wasn't worried a thing about what had occurred. I remember the thoughts that went through my mind at that particular time. If you are involved in this, I'll get you. Sooner or later, I'll get you.
But that's still a big if. Ted may not be sorry that his wife's gone, but that doesn't make him a killer. So who did kill Patricia Kimball? A shocking phone call is about to change everything. Every Sunday in Pleasant Garden, the regular crew meets to shoot the breeze in front of the Corner Mart.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to drink any more coffee.
But over at the sheriff's office, things are getting serious. Investigators are beginning to suspect Ted Kimball in his wife's murder. But there's one big problem.
We knew he was not the person that pulled the trigger to kill her. But what we didn't know is what role he played and who he played it with.
And then Detective Church gets the break he's been waiting for.
I received a call.
Detective Church, may I help you?
The person identified himself as an attorney in Lynchburg, Virginia.
The attorney is speaking on behalf of Mitchell Whidden, a friend of Ted's brother Ronnie from the Marine Corps. Mitch has since moved on to study religion, with plans of becoming a pastor.
Ronnie was thinking about entering the same program that Mitch Whidden was in up there.
What a lovely idea. But before he enters the ministry, Ronnie needs to get a deadly secret off his chest.
Oh, really?
Next few words he said, it made my day, made my day. Ronnie Kimball admitted to Mitch Whidden that he had killed his sister-in-law, Patricia Kimball. And he did it at the direction of his brother, Ted Kimball. Ted was going to pay him to kill his wife.
Overcome with guilt, Ronnie Kimball, the aspiring pastor, makes one last-ditch effort to save his soul.
When he got the money, he would be willing to give Mitch some of it to use in God's work. Obviously, Mitch turned it down, telling him, no, this is blood money, we can't do this.
But will Mitch's story check out?
Previously, we had not considered anything of Ronnie Kimball other than he was at the Marine Corps base.
Further investigation shows that Ronnie thought this was a perfect opportunity to cash in on a long weekend.
We were able to determine that Ronnie Kimball was actually in town the day this homicide occurred.
Sounds like Mitch is telling the truth, and that's bad news for the Kimball boys. But to close his case, Detective Church has to act fast.
We didn't want Ted talking to Ronnie because through the investigation we had found out that Ted was the dominant brother. The decision was made to make a simultaneous arrest because we knew Ted may say things to Ronnie that we didn't want said.
The plan works perfectly. Neither Ted nor Ronnie Kimball sees it coming. Both brothers are arrested without incident. To those that knew them, the fact that one brother would kill for another is not such a surprise.
I've known Ronnie and Ted for years.
Yeah, me too. It always seems like how Ronnie followed Ted around, seemed to do everything that he asked.
Ronnie was kind of like a little puppy dog. He was definitely a follower. He was not a leader. He was very easy manipulated.
Ronnie goes to trial first, and despite Mitch's testimony, he pleads not guilty. But the jury doesn't buy it. After a short trial, he is convicted of first-degree murder and is sentenced to life without parole. Facing a possible death sentence for his involvement, Ted pleads guilty and is sentenced to 107 years in prison. With the brothers behind bars, the town struggles to make sense of the senseless.
Why do you think he'd want to do something like that?
I heard rumor it was insurance money. That's what I'd heard.
Money make people do crazy things.
I don't believe it'd be enough money for me to even think about it.
I know not.
For those who knew and loved Patricia Kimball, their world will never be the same.
I miss Patricia every day. Hardly a day goes by that I don't think about her. It's just sad she's not here for all of us now.
Lynn Chandler Willis has come to the end of her tale. But in this story, there is no happily ever after. Patricia Kimball lives on only as a memory, while the preacher's son, whom she once loved, spends the rest of his days in prison. Lynn Chandler Willis never thought she'd write a true crime novel, and she certainly never imagined that the setting would be right here in her own hometown. But when a woman dies in a suspicious house fire, detectives uncovered the most shocking crime ever to hit Pleasant Garden, North Carolina. It's 9 a.m. in Pleasant Garden, North Carolina. Drugstore owner Ron Langdon is doing what he's done every day since 1969. And while Ron starts his workday, firefighter Alan Fields has just finished his and is looking to blow off some steam. Life as a small-town firefighter isn't easy.
Here in Pleasant Garden, there are a lot of local people. Sometimes you get a call and it might be somebody you know. You know exactly whose house it is before you ever get there.
October 9th turns out to be one of those days.
We got dispatched to a house fire on Brandon Station Court, so I knew it was Ted and Patricia Kimball's house, because at the time that was the only house on the court.
As the call was being dispatched, they also gave additional information that someone might be trapped inside.
Inside the house, their rescue takes a tragic turn.
We searched our way up to the hallway. That's when we got up to a hole that had burned in the floor.
There, they make a heartbreaking discovery. Human remains, later identified as Patricia Blakely Kimball. The firefighters fear another body may be right around the corner.
I wasn't sure if Ted was there or not. Wasn't really sure who was inside.
But through the smoke and searing flames, they find no one else. Patricia seems to have been home alone.
It does shock you a little bit. It takes a while to get over it.
What a tragic accident. Or has somebody shattered the peacefulness of Pleasant Garden on purpose?
Went into the bedrooms and noticed the drawers pulled out of the desk, papers everywhere, like maybe somebody had been in there trying to rob the place.
We come back down the hallway, and where the hole was in the floor, we noticed it looked like a burn trailer. Well, then we put two and two together with the room being ransacked, the back door being pried. Then you get in here and you realize, well, this is really suspicious.
And then, the discovery that erases any doubt about the origin of this fire.
We followed the trail over to the door and realized, hey, there's a gas can sitting in here.
Somebody actually poured gas all the way in here, set the fire, and left.
Patricia's husband is notified and races to the scene.
Sometime a few minutes later, I saw Ted arrive at the house.
Ted is distraught when he learns of his wife's death. And when the medical examiner's report comes back, it only gets worse.